that. The storm it isn't about death.
That's right. Be jamming here.
My name is Jim Danger, and I'm a musician, and I'm currently dying of cancer.
1, 2, 3, 4.
When did you start playing music? What kind of got you interested in it?
I was born into a family of musicians, and music was all around me. My parents were musicians, and they were doing country music stuff, country western. And my older brother and sister were really getting into the Beatles when they first came out when I was about 4. And music was all over the house all the time. And we were just naturally a very musical family. They all played guitars, and the assumption was we play guitars in this family. And I was just dead set on playing the drums. And I got into the drums when I was 7. And I learned to play drums listening to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band when that came out when I was 8. I really learned to play. But so I was a drummer, exclusively just a drummer, for a couple of decades before I even thought about singing.
That is not surprising to me because I have heard your music and it's very rhythmic.
Percussive, yeah.
Yeah, and that I think that happens a lot when guitarists kind of make the switch to the front of the stage, right? Their music is often very...
Yeah, a lot of drummers have become frontmen. Usually the craziest frontmen started off as a drummer.
I don't like fucking rules. That's why I never did learn much in school. I hate cops, they just make me mad. But a woman like you don't need no badge. 'Cause you're true authority. Fuck you if you won't fuck me.
Who were you playing drums with? What kind of bands were you playing drums in?
A big variety again. I started off, I was in a band for a few weeks when I was 9 years old, and that was country oriented. And then I was exposed to a lot of evangelistic Christianity growing up, which I eventually overcame. And I played in gospel groups. There was a hippie gospel band that ran a coffee house in Portsmouth. And I was playing in their band, and they were sort of rock oriented. And then I went from there to playing with a guitarist who was also doing gospel, but he was more geared toward hard rock. And so that was all the gospel stuff I did. And then I got into Rick Twombly's band in 1982, doing new wave type of stuff. And it was then, as a drummer in his band, that I started singing a couple of the songs, because previous to that, I had figured out that you don't need to be able to sing to be a punk singer. So I was in a band called The Murderers, actually co-founded a band which never got off the ground, but that's when I first started writing my own songs and singing. So that all was around 1981, 82.
Alright, I give up. Alright, I give up. I can't find you. I can't find you. Show yourself to me.
So, as you start going out, performing, singing your own songs, what kind of style, when you're starting out kind of into punk rock,
Yeah.
I can hear a little like Modern Lovers,
The
bands
biggest,
like that.
the biggest influence on me when I started writing songs and singing was the Sex Pistols. It was easy because I had been with G.G. Allen and the Jabbers, and I watched their guitar players, Rob and John, playing, and they were doing one bar chord almost exclusively up and down the neck of the guitar, like power chord thing. And so I just did that rhythmically and playing Sex Pistols style of thing when I first started.
Alright, so wait a minute. In what context were you seeing G.G. Allen?
Okay, so quick primer on G.G. Allen for the uninitiated. G.G. Allen is perhaps the most infamous figure in all of punk rock. He performed with lots of different bands, like the aforementioned Jabbers, the Scumfucks, the Texas Nazis, the Cedar Street Sluts. But he was known not so much for his music, but rather for his antics on stage, which included every vulgar act you could possibly imagine, up to and including self-mutilation and assaulting audience members. He also frequently threatened to take his own life on stage, sometimes during radio interviews, even naming dates and locations when he would do so. Fittingly, he was repeatedly thwarted in these plans because each time one of those dates would come around, he happened to be in jail. Allen eventually did die of a heroin overdose at age 36. There is apparently a documentary about him that was directed by Todd Phillips, who appropriately would go on to direct the Hangover trilogy and the Joaquin Phoenix Joker films. Fun fact, I mean, we're really stretching the definition of a fun fact here, but the poster for Phillips' documentary was painted by the serial killer John Wayne Gacy, who was, of course, familiar with G.G. Allen because G.G. had written to him and visited him in prison several times. That's G.G. Allen.
He called me up in early 1980 because I had an ad in a paper. I think it was the Sweet Potato. It was a musician's paper back then, where people would put ads looking for band members. And I put a drummer available, and I put that my style was like Keith Moon and Mitch Mitchell. And he called me up, and all laughter, gaiety. He was a marvelous salesman. And they had a couple of records out, and he told me about that. And so we agreed to get together, and we stayed pretty tight for a while.
G.G. Allen's sort of like on-stage behavior is well documented,
Right.
In kind of punk circles.
This was before the off the charts. He would play a whole set. He'd come back and play 2 sets. He wasn't doing anything bad enough yet to get thrown out. And he was singing great. He had a great voice. And so it was very different. Well, you'd have to listen to their first album to know what he was like in those days.
Interesting.
Very tame compared to later.
It's kind of hard to imagine that.
Well, he would do things like smash a beer bottle, or kick a table over maybe, or hang from the pipes that were above the stage. And he was very scary because you didn't know what he was going to do next. And that became his thing. He'd keep you on the edge of your seat. So that's about that, I guess. I lost track.
Yeah, how long were you playing drums with G.G. Allen?
Well, that's another thing. I didn't actually play ever on stage with him. When I first met him, we got together in Manchester and we talked. We were supposed to practice that day, but he remembered he had a gig in Boston and he had to take off. So I drove to Manchester, sort of for nothing, but he gave me their first 2 singles, the ones in the pink wrappers, to listen to. And we were to get together the following weekend and really start playing together. And then that week, my hand got caught in a machine at work, and it smashed all my bones in my right hand, and I was in a cast for 2.5 months. But I went to see them 2 days after that happened in Portland, and so we got to know each other, and I became their driver because just before I broke the hand, I bought a van so that I could transport my drums to and from gigs. And so I started driving them around because they had to rent a vehicle every time they went anywhere. So I became their driver and standby drummer. That's what I was. I was waiting until my hand got better. Then I would be their drummer. Does that finish? Did I finish the answer?
Yeah, it's funny to think about those kind of things, right? That
Yeah.
I think a lot of musicians have injuries in their past that end up becoming.
Oh, it was very fateful
Yeah.
because it was for the best, absolutely for the best. Because I would have stayed with him until we drove each other into the grave. Things happen for a reason, they say. Well, you don't know what the reason is until much later. But I realized later that that was a fateful thing. That I didn't go right into being a member of his band because it would have ruined my life, and because I had a daughter at the time, a young girl, and it was for the best because by the time my hand came out of the cast, the band was breaking up. Actually, the Jabbers at that time were breaking up because of the way Gigi stabbed them in the back on that first LP by making it an exclusively Gigi Allen LP, when it was, according to what they were thinking, was that it was Gigi Allen and the Jabbers, and they'd all have photographs of each other, and he switched that all around, and they briefly broke up.
So your drumming career, as that sort of transitions into your career as, you know, a singer-songwriter, what were the inciting events along that part of your life when you started writing your own
Gigi's
songs?
encouragement. He always wanted me to have my own band. He saw that in me, that I should be a frontman, songwriter, singer. And from his example, looking at what he did, that's what I wanted to do. So I formed my own band behind me, and I became a frontman in my own band doing all my own songs. In fact, I talked to Gigi the last time on the telephone in September of '92, and I told him I had a band together, and he said, "It's about time."
So what was that band called?
The Jim Danger Band.
The Jim Danger Band.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So you're performing. This is kind of still like punk style music at the time.
Yeah.
What were some of the highlights of that phase of your career?
We got out on stage publicly when my band was good. We used to play in Portsmouth on an open mic night, and that always went over. I mean, people were talking about us all over town because I was crazy from Gigi's influence. You know, I would fall on the floor and go into convulsions, forget to take the memo pad out of my pocket, so stuff was spread all over the floor, including the rolling papers, and just crazy behavior. And the music was really, really good. In fact, I did a couple of blues songs, and Robert Johnson, who was a blues legend in Portsmouth, was sitting right 2 feet in front of me in his wheelchair, and I was hoping for his approval on the blues, and he gave me a big smile and 2 thumbs up. So that made me really happy.
Crystal, she came to earth from up above, but what was heaven thinking of? We've never seen the likes of her. Maybe she's a messenger.
So let's talk about songwriting.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there is a very approachable simplicity to a lot of your lyrics and musical stylings. So I'm curious about what's the process like for you when you're writing a song? Where does it start and where does it end?
Well, I never consciously set out, or very rarely have set out consciously to, I'm going to write a song now. Things just come to me. They come to me from who knows where. I can't take credit for it. I hear it in my head, and I write down and record what I hear in my head. And as far as lyrics, it's important to know that I did poetry all through my teens. So I had learned how to use words to express what I was really feeling. And I learned from Gigi Allen that you should not be restricted in song, like, don't try to be acceptable. Say what you really think, what you really want to say. And so that was a big influence. So I try to keep it as simple and lucid as possible, where a lot of songwriters, you don't know what the hell they're talking about, really, because it's a mishmash of just words. But I try to keep it very articulate, and it's like they say, don't say anything if you don't have anything to say. So when I have something to say, or it just comes to me, but it comes to me from my own brain, then that's what you're hearing.
I do hear that, you know, and a song like Don't Be an Asshole, it's
Yeah.
very direct. Like, I know what that song's
Well,
about.
that particular one was never written; it was improvised.
But then I had to turn and say, don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. You fucking son of a bitch. Don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. You fucking son of a bitch.
I was riding with a friend in a car, getting high, and all of a sudden it was quiet in the car, and all of a sudden I burst out laughing hysterically. And he said, "What are you laughing at?" And I said, "I just had a good idea for a song. Don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. You fucking son of a bitch." And it cracked me up, because I thought when people hear "Don't be an asshole," they're gonna think that's the worst thing that they're gonna hear. And then I top it off with "You fucking son of a bitch," and it really puts it home. And so that's all I had was that phrase.
Don't be an asshole. You fucking son of a bitch. Don't be an asshole.
There was a band that was trying to get me to join them and just be a contributor to the band, when that wasn't supposed to be what the original idea was. It was supposed to be my band, but this guy was devious, that we met. There was a good bass player. He had a lot of money, a lot of equipment, and he was trying to entice us with that and take me off track of what I was doing. And I wouldn't do that. And so I was pretty irritated when we did that improvisation, because I'm going, what is this? This isn't what I do. You know, you guys made up some music and I sing to it. So, all right, I'll give you a lyric. So that's how that came. I was honestly angry.
Bass players, man. Am I right? The singing and songwriting you were doing, the performing that you were doing, what else was going on in your life while all that was happening? How did
Listen
those
to the
things...
songs.
Yeah.
You'll find out, basically. Oh my God, the intensity. Oh my God, I can't even look back sometimes, because it is too dizzying a height to try to look back on all the intensity. Marriages, starting and ending, battle with alcohol. There's always something very intense going on other than the music. And sometimes writing music to survive what was going on. Like when I wrote the song, She Doesn't Want Me Anymore, I was literally crying. I had tears falling on the page, because that's what was going on. I mean, I said, I'm going to put the words exactly what I'm feeling right now. And I did. And that's basically what I try to do, is keep it stripped down to the bare essentials, as Bruce Lee said, and just write in a very straightforward way.
Those feelings that you capture in those moments, trapping them in amber like that, do you think it made you more emotionally well adjusted, or do you think it made it worse?
Yeah, I like the way you phrase that. Yeah, it helps. I become very satisfied with songs that I write that say what I mean. It's very satisfactory to me. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. What kind of advice would you have for other musicians, for young musicians, people starting out?
I would say, basically, you can't control how you're going to develop. Just keep going, go with it, learn as much as you can, and stay focused, and you'll get wherever you're going.
Here she comes, bearing down. Took a last minute turn, now she's headed for our town. She fills the Gulf of Mexico, 400 miles wide. Today
mentioned kind of getting into the blues.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have? Is there anywhere? Was there any style along the way that you felt like, okay, this is where I was always trying to get, or has it been a continued evolution?
No, what I do is so diverse, and there's such a variety of styles and everything. I'm just trying to aspire to become me, and I don't really look at anybody else as a guidepost or any style as a something to do. I just stay loose and spontaneous and do whatever comes to me.
Do you have a favorite song or a few favorite songs? Like if someone was like, I only have time to listen to one song, do you have one you would point in their direction?
I guess I would go with the one that's been the most popular on YouTube, which isn't typical, but there really isn't one song that is typical. But the song is called Wild Animals, and I would say that one.
Yeah, and what about that song in particular stands out to you? What do you like other than...
Because I try to have something meaningful to say, and that song is just beginning to end saying a lot.
People interact like wild animals which kill. And once you've been attacked, you learn your survival skills. Always on their guard, they seek their friends while armed. 'Cause they'd rather live alone than to ever again be harmed.
So let's talk about, what's going on with you now. Let's talk about, I know, so you were recently diagnosed.
Right.
What was that like?
What was being diagnosed with cancer like?
Yeah.
Well, when it first hit me, I just gulped when I realized where the doctor was going when he was explaining what they found on the CT scan. But immediately, I kicked into, okay, so this is what's happening, and we're going to deal with it. And I've dealt with it extremely well, just accepting it because I don't fight life, I don't fight nature, and this is what's happening. This is my experience to go through now. And I really don't have any regrets. Things have worked out so well with all the support and getting my music exposed and those things that, to me, cancer has been a gift.
So if you were to, so you actually just said you had no regrets, but that was going to be my next question, is that, like, looking back, is there anything that you wish you had done differently, or do you feel like, hey, this got me where I'm at?
Only the times when I hurt someone else, I feel bad about. And I talk to myself about it, saying, you can't look back. I mean, that's where you were at the time. But it really hurts when I think about someone that I might have hurt along the way. What's I going to say? Scratch that.
No problem. So, all right, we talked about music. We talked about, other people you've crossed paths with. What about, and we talked about sort of your advice for younger musicians. What about just your advice for life? What do you, as a person who lived, what are the things you think you did right, and what do you think other people should do?
Well, first of all, what I did wrong was due to my church upbringing and strict religious and school upbringing, is I restricted myself trying to be a good person. And it wasn't until my mid-30s that I took a broader view. I rejected Christianity. I started learning about Eastern thought, and I realized I'm not a bad person, and that you must live spontaneously, not trying to be anything. Just do what you do and don't worry about it. And I think things work out best that way. So that's what I've learned to do, is if it feels right to me, if it's natural, then that's the direction I go.
What was it that took you, what took you out of Christianity? What was it that kind of opened your eyes?
It was a pretty long process, but it was, again, in my mid-30s, I underwent a complete revolution inside, and I was opening myself to ideas that, I was always trying to prove that the Bible was correct no matter what. And then there came a point where I wasn't willing to take that stance, that things that didn't make sense to me didn't make sense. And if it didn't make sense, I threw it out. But it was a long process over years because I'd been programmed so deeply as a child. It was a long process to be able to pull myself out of that. And it was the scariest thing I ever had to do, ever in my life, was to say I'm not any longer a believer. I'm not a Christian. And then the question arose in my head, but is Jesus Christ Lord? And my answer was, I don't know. And it was then that I was completely liberated from Christianity and took a much more holistic view.
Now, with that holistic view, now as you approach the end of your life, what do you think happens?
I was always headed in that direction. I had to escape from childhood trauma and bad programming, and I was always headed in that direction, trying to learn. The thing that held me back for so long was my staunch beliefs in the strict fundamentalist Christianity. And as that began to fade, and I began to discover myself, what was the question?
What do you think happens when we die?
Oh, well, first of all, it's unknown. One bad thing about religious beliefs is filling in the unknown with an answer that you put there because you can't tolerate the unknown. And I think death is, I would have said, it's like going to sleep and never waking up. That individual person no longer exists at all. And that individual person with a certain name was not who that person was. That person was life itself, all. And with a separate ego working as an eyeball for the universe to view itself. But I just had a revelation last night that death is not going to sleep. The moment of death is the moment of waking up.
So, before that happens, with your time that you have here, what do you got any plans? You got any goals?
First of all, is survive as long as I can, mainly for the sake of my son, who is 17, I love him so much, and he's a very talented, brilliant boy, and I want him to have as much of a cushion as possible between learning that I'm going to die and my actually being gone. I'm trying to help him prepare for it. So, I forgot the question again.
What else? What do you plan?
Oh, yeah,
what
plans.
Are your
Yeah.
goals?
I'm just enjoying the fact that my music is out there, and I'm trying my best to continue to play. I found out the other day that I can still sing, so I would like to record a few more things. Other than that, I'm just sort of kicking back.
Sounds pretty good. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you feel like you want to share at this time? I feel like sometimes I always ask people, like, what should I have asked you?
Well, if I had to say something, it would be to those local musicians, mostly, who always put me down and gave me a hard time, probably out of jealousy. But if my music becomes famous, not that I care about it in an ego way, but if my music really becomes significant in the world of music, I just want to tell those guys, I told you!
Perfect. I love it.
So that's our show today. I am grateful to Jim for taking the time to talk to me. I'm grateful for every conversation on this podcast, but in this case, I was particularly aware of the time that he was giving me. Jim Danger passed away at 8 p.m. on August 16th, 2024, 11 days after this interview. My friend Crystal, who's been on the show before, Jim is her father, She let me know that he was surrounded by his loved ones and by music when it happened. It's a rare thing to be able to face death that way, to see it coming, to accept it, and to take the time with your loved ones to say goodbye on your terms. And Jim seemed really aware of that. Not just that he was doing it, but that he was lucky to have the opportunity. I feel similarly lucky to have had the opportunity to talk it all over with him right before the end. This episode is dedicated to Crystal and her family. Thank you for listening. We'll be back soon. So as a little coda to today's episode, this is me and Morgan doing a cover of a Jim Danger song. Here is Traveling.
S'il vous plaît. Bonjour madame. Vous désirez madame? Continue please. Arrêtez s'il vous plaît. Oui madame. Continuez.
I was traveling around through a little southern town. Outside a bar, a shopping old man said, "Son, sit down." He said, "My own kids are grown. They've all got lives of their own. I never thought I'd wind up living here alone." Before I could respond, he said, "My wife's passed on. As short as life can be, sometimes it's a bit too long. Just a little too long." Some men turn to drinking, others just feel bad. This man sits there thinking, and I thought to myself as I went on my way, this man could be my own dad. As alone as my own dad. Back on the bus later that same day, I met a woman with hair of gray. She'd been to visit her son and daughter, thinking she might stay. But now she's going home, back to her own town to live alone. She said they didn't need her, she just got in their way. She smiled, but that's okay.